Hey, did you know just changing your voice, you can be more persuasive? Not the words we've talked about before. That's important. We'll talk about that. But adjusting your voice, your rate, your cadence, a few other things. We're going to talk about that today. Let's do it.
Maximize Your Influence is your podcast for the latest persuasion, sales, and negotiation techniques. Our mission is to help you influence on command, anyone, anytime, anywhere. Your host is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence. Now, your host, Kurt Mortensen.
All right, podcast 510, Kurt Mortensen here. Go to MaximizeYourInfluence.com, click on 510 for all the links, your free Persuasion IQ assessment, Advanced Training Influence University, anything you need all in one spot. So all the links, everything we talk about, all the specials, everything you need is right there. And let's start with the persuasion blunder of the week. Don't! Yeah, it's going to be me. And I've done it before, as we talked about word and word choice, using your voice. I've made the mistake. Sometimes we don't think it through, especially internationally. I've said some dumb things, some rude things, probably some mean things. That was not my intent. It's just how it comes across sometimes. All the cultures have different contexts, different word choice. I mean, there's a variety of different things that you can take a look at. So I'm with a pretty bright audience. A lot of advanced degrees, accountants, a lot of number crunchers, data analytical people. And I was going over an advanced topic, advanced persuasion influence topic that I don't normally get to, say, in a basic 3-day. So I was going through it, going down to this one. This guy just wasn't getting it, didn't understand. Hey, help me out. Where are you going? What about this? I'm like, okay, let me dumb it down for you. Yeah, that's not good verbal packaging. One of the 12 laws of persuasion and maximum influence. And my intent was not to insult them that they're stupid. It was just something that came out. Like, oh, honestly speaking, trust me on this one. Well, we're not supposed to trust you before. You weren't honest before. So we just say things that are just dumb, like dumb it down. And those are the words we're going to use. We're going to get more into the voice today, how to use your voice, go into some of those studies. That was a big one for me. I could just see the faces of the audience. Again, even internationally, I've said some things. Words didn't translate right. I've made some mistakes. Some I don't think I've used. Well, maybe I have, is you wouldn't understand. We hear that one all the time. Those are the rules. Doesn't help calm down the situation. Or even worse, hey, you should probably calm down. You're out of control. Doesn't do that. You're overreacting. It's not a big deal. Or the famous one for most couples, you always, you never, are all different things we got to be careful of. So be very careful of the words you use, especially when people are emotional. Well, you shouldn't be angry. All right, so number one, you're discounting their emotions. Number two, anger could be one of those words that could cause more anger. I would switch it up a little bit as we talk about word choice. Hey, I can tell you're passionate about, you have a strong feeling for, strong commitment to, whatever it is. Every word matters, can attract or repel. That's a huge piece in a verbal packaging. And that'll take us to our listener email.
Oh, boy!
Remember, you can reach me at Kurt, K-U-R-T, at MaximizeYourInfluence.com. If you're in the car, jogging, doing something else, you can always go to the website and check out the Contact Us form. Anytime we use anything on the show, from humor to content to an article, you get a free gold version of InfluenceUniversity.com. There's even a free version. Check it out. This is from Peter from Scotland. It says, Kurt, I saw you do a keynote in Las Vegas. Loved it. Hey, thanks, Peter. I don't know if you know this, Peter, but keynotes are a lot more challenging than a full-day presentation. So, listeners, a keynote's about 60 to 90-minute presentation. It's just hands-on, choreographed. You can't go over, you can't go under. An 8-hour seminar, one-day seminar, for me is less stressful because you guys, let's do this exercise, work on this. We can go in the direction of the audience. I'm also trying to become a presenter like you. Just curious. You don't have to answer it if you want. What are the worst mistakes you've made as a presenter? Peter, I can't count them. You know, we never give a perfect presentation. Some blunders, mistakes are worse than others. That's absolutely true. I told you about internationally, some of the words I've used, some of the things I've tried. And that's a big one internationally, even with the graphics. I try to get there earlier and show the translator the graphics and then go yes, yes, no. For example, I was in Italy and I was talking about closing skills and how some people feel screwed. And there was this awesome picture of this large screw going through this guy. He's kind of screaming, kind of illustrates the point. Yeah, they didn't get it. That's a North American term. They had no idea why this person had a screw going through them. Or in the Middle East, it was this piggy bank that was really skinny. You could see the bones just to illustrate that mindset is so huge to become financially independent, right? But, hey, people feel sorry for the pig. Some parts of the world don't like pigs. They are unclean. In fact, there's this really funny commercial out of Italy that gets everyone laughing, but I can't use it everywhere else. You can search it if you want. It's a guy trying to tell time with the donkey in the way. I'll just put it at that. It's got millions of views. It's kind of funny, but humor doesn't always translate across the board. And with that, too, I've done other ones, more nonverbal, we'll call it. 1,000 people in the room, lights are on, cameras are going on the stage. When there's a lot of lights, you can't see the end of the stage, and I fell off on my back. Woo! Just glad I didn't let any choice words out on that one. I've tripped on the stage on the way to get a handshake. I was 7 hours into an 8-hour presentation, took a drink of water, went down the wrong pipe, and I sprayed the whole front row. Or the guy in the front row doing this vertical thing with their fingers because my zipper was down, way down. And the worst one, I think every speaker's done this one. Be careful, this one. You're up in 10 minutes. They put on your lavalier, your wireless mic, and you're pacing. That's what I like to pace and visualize and think. Hey, I got time to go to the restroom, not knowing the mic's live, right? And you know when the whole audience hears a... Yeah, they're like, we know what you did. Going into the wrong meeting room, going to the stage. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm your next speaker. Like, no, you're not. So I was in the wrong room, so I can give you long lists. And that's part of it. I think the audience actually likes you more when you make mistakes. So own up to it. You made a mistake, whether it be verbal, nonverbal, whatever it is, you'll make mistakes. So on your track to becoming a presenter, make sure you record it. Make sure that there's no such thing as a perfect presentation. Something's going to happen. Your PowerPoint's going to go out. There's going to be a mean heckler in the audience. The internet won't work. Fire alarm going off. I've got stories. So, hey, Peter, let me know how I can help you get on your track to become a professional presenter. But, hey, we make mistakes. Just own it, smile it. Because when I was researching laws of charisma, the way charismatic people handle embarrassment or when they get scared or they make a mistake, that tells you a lot about the person. And people look at that. If they're always pointing fingers, blaming, they get embarrassed and they don't own up, like, yep, I blew that one. That's actually a subset of charisma, something to think about as everyone goes out and does those persuasive presentations. Now, take us to our geeky scholarly article. This comes from the journal Personality and Social Psychology, the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Zant and Dr. Berger. This is about what we talked about earlier, how the voice persuades. We've talked a lot about the words. We don't say contract, we say paperwork. We don't say appointment, we say time to visit. We don't say cancellation policy, we say right of rescission. We don't say but, we say and. We don't say you, we say we. I mean, I can go down this long list. The voice is huge, especially in our digital world, doing more over the phone. The voice is very important. We judge the pilot's voice just based on what we hear over the intercom. We can't see them, but we're judging how competent or how confident they are. That's just how it is. I mean, if you had a really good pilot and you didn't know and they came on, they're like, hi, welcome aboard. Okay, that would freak you out because that's not what you're expecting. That's not a very confident voice. Don't tell Mickey Mouse that, but hey, that's just how it is. So people are exposed to different voices, and they call it paralinguistic just because they're professors and they like big words. So they're exposed to these paralinguistic, basically your voice, how you use your voice. So the research shows that people can be persuaded not only by what is said, right, the content, by how it is said through paralanguage, which could be pitch, volume, confident vocal demeanor. Those influence attitudes and choices. So they're looking at this, again, paralinguistic, acoustic properties of speech can be more effective in influencing attitudes compared to just straight content. And speakers that tend to speak louder and vary their volume during this paralinguistic persuasion show more confidence and the people are more persuaded. And that seems to be the key of the study is the more you can do to exude confidence through your voice, your vocal variety, your paralinguisticness, probably not a word, but that's the word that they've been using, can make a big difference. So let's back up. Paralinguistics refers to the nonverbal elements of speech that convey meaning beyond the words themselves. So it encompasses pretty much every aspect of vocal communication. Like we talk about tone, voice, pitch, volume, rhythm, cadence, intonation, inflection. All of these are part of that vocal communication. So paralinguistics focuses on how we say things rather than what we say. And these vocal cues can convey emotion, which we know is more persuasive than logic, attitudes, and what you want to emphasize. Basically provide additional layer of meaning and context to the spoken language. But let me back up a little bit here. The research also shows that your nonverbal behavior is always going to be more important than your voice. So if you look at Albert Mehrabian's work, when you look at the impact of your message, most of it's going to be your nonverbal behavior. The next is your vocal variety, what we're talking about today, and then the next will be your word choice. So they did 4 experiments looking at the acoustic properties of speech. And the one I mentioned earlier that, speak louder. Not that you're yelling. I mean, that can grab attention, but it can make people tense after a while. But the varying of the volume, a higher volume, signaled more confidence, which turned into more persuasion. Now I'm talking about the Red Bull, too much copy, hype, yelling, bouncing all over the place. I'm talking about the passion and the emotion and the varying your volume. And at those moments, coming up and really talking about the things that are important. I mean, that can make a huge difference in your perception of confidence and make you more persuasive. When people think that you're going to try to persuade them to do something, they start looking for it and they build this resistance before you even say anything. That's going to impede any type of persuasion. That's why we never say, today I'm going to persuade you. I'm going to change your mind. You're wrong. Can lead to resistance, as we talked about in the last week's podcast. And this is congruent with another study by Dr. Aronovich, that the key with the cadence and the volume and the pauses and the things we'll be talking about here in a second, that the key is to appear more confident. That enhances persuasion. So when you inflect down at the end of a sentence that has more confidence, higher volume has more confidence. Again, you can cross the line. Have too much volume and feel like they're being yelled at. That could have the opposite effect. So bottom line, we looked at the different conditions of different studies. Paralinguistic persuasion made the speakers appear more confident, which enhanced persuasion. So do you record your presentations? Or do you, whether it be face-to-face, digitally, over the phone? I mean, this is where we get better. You don't even know probably how you're doing with your paralinguistic persuasion. I mean, can you keep a 4-year-old interested when you're reading them a book? That is paralinguistic persuasion. That's when you're really engaged with your voice and the way you talk and what you do. Those can be very, very helpful. So any pro is going to record and get better. I know it's not your favorite thing to do, but that's where the magic happens. Because what you think happened, what really happened, are 2 very different things. So let me add to this and review, what is this vocal variety? What do we need to consider? What are we listening for? How do we come across as more confident and more persuasive with our voice? So working with CEOs, politicians, well, I don't do politicians anymore. But, this is a huge piece because people judge on these things. They're speaking all the time. So we do know, whether it's fair or not, that deeper voices tend to be more credible across the board. So you should smoke more. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that's not something I'd worry about too much unless you have a really high squeaky voice. But usually if you can deepen your voice, there's something about that can exude credibility, makes you easier to listen to sometimes. Your accent, if you have a heavy accent, you got to start a little slower, give your audience time to get used to that. Some accents, again, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, it's just reality. Some accents are perceived more competent, and some accents are perceived as less competent. You've got to decide where you rank on that, where you are. Do you need to change it? Do you need to enhance it? But accent can help or hurt. Then there's your inflection. Basically, when they're listening to you, they're listening to the movie, you're inflecting up, you're inflecting down, you're varying your volume, you're using a higher volume. You got to project to the back of the room if it's a bigger room. You got to even project more through these digital calls because I think you're losing about 30% of your energy. So vary your volume. That's a big one for most people, varying their volume. And even that rhythm, that cadence can be very important, that it just kind of flows, that there's a cadence, there's this rhythm, there's this thing that is just Makes it easier for people to pay attention. I know, especially when I'm getting translated. I mean, imagine doing seminar on charisma. You're trying to be charismatic, but when you speak for 20 seconds, they speak for 20 seconds, and you're pausing. It's hard to be energetic, charismatic, but I have found that the cadence and where you pause, and sometimes it may be 5 seconds of translation, sometimes it might be 30 seconds of translations, but a cadence, a rhythm really helps to keep people more engaged. Even if you're speaking your own language, or especially if you're being translated, but a rhythm, a cadence, very important. So what are the top 3 here as I work with people on their presentation skills? And by the way, send me a video clip. I'll critique it. Send it out to me. I'll be happy to give you my 2 cents. Take a look at it, listen to it. That's part of what we do with your presentation IQ. I'd love to help you out in the world of persuasive presentations, but let's get to the big 3. You may or may not have these, but I'm just saying across the board, monitoring, critiquing, improving thousands of presentations. Not in any particular order. The first one is going to be pauses. Those pregnant pauses. Why pregnant? I don't know. That's what they call them. But if you want someone to feel the emotion of that story, to laugh at that joke, you've got to pause and just really bring it in. Too many presenters, they tell a joke and they keep cruising and their audience is taught not to laugh. Oh, when you're getting to that main point and the knife comes out and they raised it above their head. You feel that pause? Right? What's going to happen next? Pause is such a little thing. Again, especially if you're trying to get an emotion, a feeling, a reaction, a laugh, a smile, you've got to pause and let that happen. Because if you keep going, they don't have time to smile, laugh, feel the emotion, then they're not going to do it and you won't be as persuasive as you need to be. So that's on my top 3. The next one, and you might be in denial on this one, we all work on this one, focal fillers. Dude, every language, every culture has them. And what your brain does, it kind of thinks in like chunks or segments. And when you go to segment, chunk to chunk, piece to piece, there's a little pause, a little silence, a little awkward, your brain just kind of puts it in. You need to record and find out if you're doing these because it hurts your credibility. It's harder for people to listen to you and you don't even know you're using them. I'll fix mine all the time. It's fixed. It's done. 2 years later, I get a note from my editor. They're back. So we're always working on them. A few here and there is not a big deal, but you're hard to listen to. It decreases your credibility, especially those that use a lot of them. It's like a knife stabbing you. Dude, and you're just like, oh. So don't be the one like, I don't do that. Record yourself and see, or have people count them in the audience and say, yep, 112. Then you've got something to work on, something to do. And the final one, part of the big 3, for most presenters, is their rate. Now, this is going to depend on culture. This is going to depend on it getting translated. This is going to depend on a variety of factors, topics sometimes. But people always ask, what's more persuasive, more engaging, fast or slow? Because you can slow down so your audience can soak in every word, but you want to hit the speaker. It's just too slow. But you can speak really fast. I can be a fast talker, talk about persuasion, motivation, influence. It's a game changer, it's a life changer. So what is it? Faster. The faster you can speak, the more engaging you are, the more charismatic you're rated. Wait a minute. Now, I don't want you to be a fast talker. Like the pharmaceutical commercials where it's all under the radar. I want you to vary your rate, but increase your overall average rate. You're still pausing, slowing down, varying your rate, speeding up, slowing down. But if we can just increase your overall average rate, more energetic, more charismatic, easier to listen to, and it gives your audience less time to think of counter arguments. How cool is that? You've got this. Record your presentations and improve your vocal variety, or as they call it, your paralinguistic persuasion. There you have it. That's a wrap. All the links will be available at podcast 510, from the studies to the free persuasion IQ assessment, and your bonus of the week just for listening. I have this video series called The 10 Common Persuasion Mistakes Costing You Money. I'll put a link there at maximizeyourinfluence.com. Click on podcast 510 and go through the videos. The 5-10 common persuasion mistakes across the board. Check it out. Improve your influence. Become a better negotiator. Work on your voice. Work on your word choice. Work on your people skills and go out and persuade with power.